Ukraine, and now I do want to move to the current situation and discuss both Germany's position towards Ukraine and Russia and the EU's position towards Germany towards Ukraine and Russia. And so, on the one hand, there was a great show of unity early on in terms of sanctions or even support by delivery of military equipment, etc. But on the other hand, my impression is even the United States to some extent is guilty of that Ukraine gets enough to defend itself, but not enough to repel the aggressor, right? To expel.
Too much to die, too little to live.
I mean, yes, and then it's going to be a forever war. And then my impression is that the EU has consistently overpromised and underdelivered.
I mean, what happened in the Balkans? In the Balkans, mainly, a certain cynicism has developed as far as the European Union is concerned with the young generation. In Serbia by now, which is also partly due to President Vucic's propaganda machine, majority of people are against joining the European Union. Of course.
And Vucic is a complicated figure because he is fairly pro-Putin, he is fairly pro-Chinese, right?
Yeah, he tries to steer, sometimes I say it's the Serbian dog wagging the Yugoslav tail. He tries to copy the Tito model. Just in this world, it's not working that way anymore, at least in the long run. No, but the problem is, again, look at the time scale. Montenegro, judging by today, would join 2,127, like in nowhere, no man's time, no man's land. Of course, people...
And now today, Ursula von der Leyen says, Ukraine is Europe. Charles Michel, the president of the European Council, says, we are all Ukrainians. I should have said Ursula von der Leyen is the president of the European Commission. And I feel, well, what does it mean? Does it mean that Ukraine will become a full member in a year, in 2 years, in 5 years?
I don't see that happening for the precise reasons that I have mentioned before. There are certain member states, maybe with good reasons, that say we cannot take in full-fledged members who have a veto right because the European Union becomes ungovernable. Don't forget that the European Union also had the policy we do not take in countries with an open military conflict.
Yes.
Cyprus is the exception, divided since 1974, but Cyprus was taken in only as a result of the blackmail of Greece, because Greece, I think at the European Summit in Helsinki in 1999, but I would have to double check that, said we are going to block the entire Eastern enlargement if Cyprus is not taken in, and this is how we ended up with having Cyprus as a member. I think there is a potential way out of the dilemma, though. The idea is, okay.
So you have a vision for the future of Europe.
It's not only
that
my...
That would include Ukraine, that would include
it's not
the countries of Western Balkans.
Yes, it's not my vision or my idea. I just find it convincing, which is why I argue for it, or why I describe it, so that many people can talk about it. It's not obviously up to me to decide about it. If we say, okay, full-fledged membership, for the reason we have discussed, is simply not possible in the foreseeable future, and we must do politics for the foreseeable future, for our kids, for the generation to come, and maybe a little bit for us as well. If this is not possible, and it's not possible, then what else can we do? Should we just say, nothing is going to happen? No, we can't do. We must act, because if we don't act, others will act.
Yes. Even China,
Turkey, whatever, especially in the Balkans, exactly. Russia, well, Russia has maybe kicked itself out of the picture a little bit, but it's still there. So what can we do? There is the idea of offering the countries of the Western Balkans, plus Moldova, plus Ukraine, membership in the single market. Offering them what Norway has. I would say, well, if it's good for Norway, maybe it shouldn't be too bad for North Macedonia or Bosnia-Herzegovina or Kosovo. Norway is member of the single market, but not of the political European Union. The advantage is the fears of President Macron and others that we cannot have new veto.
And the Prime Minister Scholz.
And Chancellor Scholz, we cannot have new members who have veto rights, is taken away by this, because in the single market you are not part of the political process. You have a membership a la carte, I would say. So this problem is out of the way, no veto rights. But still for the people, and this is what we are doing, what people are doing, should be doing politics for the everyday, for the normal person in Skopje, in Macedonia, in Sarajevo, in Bosnia, in Belgrade, wherever. It is in daily life as if he or she is citizen of a European Union country, because you can live and work wherever you like. No one can forbid you. You can go to Denmark, you can go to France, you can go to Spain, to Germany. You are economically a subject of the European Union with all rights that this entails. The only thing you do not have, but let's face it, how many people care for that, is you cannot vote in the elections for European Parliament. Your country doesn't have an own commissioner, and thus it doesn't have a veto right in the European Union. But besides, you have everything, and maybe you will not have to go to the European Union anymore, because if your country flourishes, why would you leave?
Yes. And that could be implemented much faster than a full-fledged
there's still no guarantee. It can still become object of blockades, unfortunately, but it's a much more realistic process, because the core argument of those people who are skeptical, saying we can just not take in more more members who have the veto right, is taken out. And there are still problems. I mean, look what they've done to North Macedonia. That's an interesting case. Yes. North Macedonia in 2018 did more than any other country in the history
including changing its very name.
That's what I mean. They had a referendum because Greece, for reasons that are maybe too complicated now to discuss, people can Google it, Greece was blocking Macedonia when it was still called Macedonia, saying this is an ancient Greek name, you cannot have this name, this is Greek. And this was going on for 15 years, even more, basically with the moment that Macedonia declared independence in 1991. Greece was blocking everything, under pressure from the European Union, from George Bush at the time, who wanted to take them into NATO. No, any Greek government said, no way, you have first to change your name. Yeah. Now then, it did happen in 2018. The government of Alexis Tsipras and Nikos Koutsias in Greece, and the government of Zoran Zaev and Nikola Dimitrov in Skopje made an historic agreement. The name was changed, not the identity. The Macedonians, also by the Greek Treaty of Perespa, could still call themselves Macedonian, because you cannot change your identity.
Of course.
But they did change the name from Macedonia to North Macedonia. The Greeks said, okay, now it's clear this is not the historical terminus, and
And yet North Macedonia is still not about to join.
Exactly. So everyone said, I mean, Angela Merkel went to Skopje to tell them, vote for the name change. She didn't specifically promised then you will be a member in the European Union, but she was insinuating it very clear. Ursula von der Leyen came also to Skopje to promise the same. She was then Minister of Defense of Germany, not Commission President. I think Mike Pompeo also came. So everyone came and said, vote for the change because that's important. What happened? It's not true that North Macedonia didn't get anything. They did get NATO membership, which in these times is nothing. But as soon as the Greek veto was lifted, voila, the Bulgarians came and said, no, you cannot, because you must first admit that your identity is basically Bulgarian, that your language has Bulgarian origins, and so on. Which is, this is really absurd. It's like a nationalistic interpretation of history from the 19th century, but unfortunately this is where we are. So I can understand very well them. And now what we are facing is, Bulgarians say, first you have to change your constitution and to include the Bulgarian minority, in brackets, these are 3,500 people.
3,500 people. Out of 10 million?
No, 2 million.
The population of Bulgaria.
Yeah, Bulgaria is 8 million, but...
2 million.
Macedonia is 2 million.
Macedonia, that's right.
And so 3,500, and you have the Bulgarians say, only if you change your constitution and include this tiny minority...
2% basically.
3,500 people, I would say that's less. Huh?
Yeah.
If you include them into the constitution, then we lift our block, not for becoming member, we lift our blockade for beginning of negotiations, to which the opposition in Skopje, I think rightly says, listen, we're going to do this, and then tomorrow you come around the corner with another veto. We are not going to accept this. There is one idea, and then I'll finish on that issue, but I think that's an interesting, it's a little bit nitty-gritty detail, but it's interesting because European Union is about details.
Yes.
The Macedonian opposition party, Vimro, has made a suggestion from what I have heard. I'm going to Skopje now to understand more about it, that I find interesting. They said, in order to change the constitution, they needed 2/3 majority, so it depends on the opposition, on Vimro. Are they going to go along or not? Yes. Basically, they're against. But they said there's under one condition, we might even vote for this change, for including Bulgarians into the constitution into the preamble of the Macedonian constitution. We vote for the change. We say, yes, Bulgarians will be included as founding people into our constitution. But the change comes into effect only on the day when we become members of the European Union. I find that's a smart idea, but let's see how it goes.